There's a specific moment when money stops feeling like a constant threat. When checking a bank account doesn't trigger anxiety. When a surprise expense no longer feels like it could derail an entire month. That shift doesn't happen at $1 million. It doesn't even happen at 6 figures. It happens much earlier. While most personal finance advice fixates on high incomes and massive net worth goals, the real turning point comes from a far smaller number. A number that quietly separates people who build real wealth from those stuck in constant financial stress. That number is $10,000. This isn't about being rich instantly. It's about crossing the first real financial threshold where the rules change. Before this point, money feels fragile and exhausting. After it, you begin to master your money and it starts working differently, both mathematically and psychologically. Most people assume wealth grows in a straight line. Save a little, invest a little, wait a long time, and eventually things improve. But financial education teaches us that wealth doesn't actually work that way. It moves in jumps. There are invisible barriers that, once crossed, completely change momentum. $10,000 is the first and most important of those barriers. Think of pushing a massive boulder uphill. At the beginning, progress is painfully slow. Every step feels heavy. Momentum barely exists, and giving up feels tempting. But after enough effort, the boulder starts to roll. And once it crests the hill, gravity takes over. The first $10,000 is that moment. Everything before it feels like pushing uphill. Everything after it feels like momentum finally shows up to help you simplify your financial life. But the real transformation isn't just financial, it happens in the brain. When there's no savings, the mind operates in scarcity mode. Every decision is filtered through fear. Job choices are limited. Bad situations are tolerated. Opportunities are ignored because survival comes first. This isn't weakness, it's biology. Scarcity consumes mental bandwidth. When money is tight, the brain focuses on immediate threats, rent, food, bills, and loses the ability to think long-term. Planning, investing for beginners, and growth require mental space that simply doesn't exist in survival mode. That's why even small savings buffers create massive psychological shifts. Research shows that having as little as $1,500 in emergency savings significantly increases financial well-being. Not because it's a large amount, but because it moves the mind out of panic. Now, scale that buffer to 3 to 6 months of expenses, roughly $10,000 for many people, and something bigger happens. There's breathing room. Financial decisions stop being reactive. Strategy becomes possible. Instead of asking, how do I survive until next month? The question becomes, how do I grow this? That shift alone changes everything. And then the math starts to matter. Reaching the first $10,000 usually takes the longest. Imagine saving $800 per month and earning an average 7% return. It takes roughly a year of consistency, sacrifice, and debt payoff discipline to hit that first milestone. But the second $10,000 doesn't take another year. It takes closer to 10 months. Nothing changed. The same savings rate, the same investments, the same effort. The difference is that the first $10,000 is now working alongside the monthly contributions. That's compound interest beginning to show itself. Yet, by the time the third $10,000 is underway, the timeline shrinks again. Investment returns start doing more of the work. Eventually, the acceleration becomes dramatic. At higher balances, $10,000 can be generated in just a few months, without increasing effort. The amount that once felt impossible starts happening automatically. This isn't because wealthy people have secret investments. At this stage, the strategy is usually simple. Broad index funds, long-term consistency, patience. The difference is scale. An 8% return on $1,000 is $80. Nice, but forgettable. The same 8% on $10,000 is $800. That starts to matter. 7% growth on $10,000 is $700 a year. Money that appears without trading time for it. Income that isn't tied to a paycheck or even a side hustle idea. That's the first taste of money working independently. Same investments, same risk, completely different impact. But here's the most overlooked part of reaching $10,000: the habit it proves. Saving that amount from zero requires discipline, spending awareness, saying no to things that feel good now in favor of something better later. It requires consistency over months or years. That process builds an identity shift. Someone who saves $10,000 becomes someone who controls money instead of reacting to it. Delayed gratification becomes familiar. Long-term thinking becomes normal. That skill matters far more than the number itself. Before this milestone, small purchases feel stressful. Every expense requires calculation. Afterward, confidence replaces anxiety. Not because spending becomes reckless, but because priorities are clear. And another subtle shift occurs. The brain starts seeing opportunities instead of threats. When living paycheck to paycheck, unexpected expenses feel like disasters. A car repair, a broken laptop, a rent increase. Each one threatens stability. With $10,000 set aside, those same events become inconveniences, not emergencies. Even more important, new opportunities become visible. A new business idea, an investing for beginners opportunity, a career conference that requires upfront costs. Previously, these moments passed by unnoticed or dismissed as unrealistic. Now they can be evaluated. This is what people mean when they say money attracts money. Not because of luck or favoritism, but because having money creates options, and options create leverage. The same shift changes how spending decisions are made. Early on, budgeting focuses on tiny details. Name brand versus generic, coffee versus homemade. Every dollar feels critical to stretch your paycheck. But once a foundation exists, it becomes clear that these micro decisions barely move the needle. The difference between buying coffee and not buying coffee might be a few $100s a year. Useful, but not life-changing. What actually matters are the big decisions: housing, transportation, savings rate, investments, career trajectory. Those choices affect net worth by tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars over time. This realization is freeing. Mental energy stops being wasted on trivial spending and starts being applied where it actually matters. And this is where $10,000 begins to transform careers. Without savings, work becomes a trap. Bad bosses are tolerated. Low pay is accepted. Unreasonable demands go unchallenged. Leaving feels impossible because missing even one paycheck is dangerous. Savings changes the power dynamic. $10,000 creates walking away money. Not money to quit recklessly, but money that makes quitting possible. That alone shifts confidence. Negotiations change. Raises get requested. Boundaries get enforced. New side hustle ideas get explored. Often the money never needs to be used. Just knowing it exists changes how someone shows up at work. Confidence increases. Performance improves. Leadership notices. Ironically, the financial buffer designed for safety often leads to higher income without being spent. But this milestone comes with a trap. Many people reach $10,000 and immediately spend it. A new car, a luxury vacation, a reward for discipline. That's the mistake. $10,000 isn't a trophy. It's a foundation to build real wealth. Large purchases reveal this clearly, especially cars. Over a lifetime, the average person spends hundreds of thousands of dollars on vehicles between payments, insurance, maintenance, and depreciation. A new car loses roughly 20% of its value the moment it's driven off the lot. That's wealth destruction, not consumption. That same money invested instead can grow into multiples of its original value over time. Once $10,000 is saved, thinking shifts from, "Can this payment fit?" to, "What is this really costing in the future?" A $30,000 car isn't just $30,000. It's potentially $150,000 or more in lost growth over a few decades. This opportunity cost mindset spreads everywhere: housing, education, travel, hobbies. Not in a joyless way, but intentionally. Many expensive wants lose their appeal when viewed through the lens of time and compounding. Others remain worth it, and that clarity is acknowledging. This isn't about deprivation, it's about alignment. Spending money on what truly matters and cutting what doesn't. $10,000 won't make anyone rich overnight. But it permanently changes the game. It moves life out of survival mode and into strategy mode. It replaces fear with options, reaction with intention. That's why this milestone matters more than any flashy income goal. Build the foundation first. Everything else gets easier afterward. For more clear, practical insights on how to master your money, subscribe to Wallet Watch and turn on notifications. Stay consistent, stay intentional, and keep watching your money work smarter, not harder.